It's me, Patrick. Welcome back to Stepping Stone Farm. And just in time. We're about to embark on the last planting of the season here. There's still enough time to squeeze in a planting of quicker maturing crops like my little gem lettuces. Newham is the name of the variety to be exact. But we don't have a lot of time left. It's of the essence. We're losing about 30 minutes of daylight per week at the 37th parallel where we are in Northern California, Zone 9B, Napa. But I started these lettuces about 4 weeks ago in the greenhouse. There's just enough time to pop them in the ground here to enjoy them later on at the tail end of fall and the early parts of winter. These beds here had winter squash and corn growing through the main season, two crops that are both quite hungry. They're both quite nutrient demanding. So prior to planting these lettuces, I laid a nice healthy 1 to 2 inch layer of good quality compost on top of the beds. The compost here we're using is well mature, rotted, decomposed horse manure mixed with cow manure and a little bit of their bedding, which in this case was straw and wood chips, all organic, really good quality. That will feed the soil throughout the coming seasons, the fall and winter, especially when our winter rains help integrate a lot of the soil on top here. And it will also feed our lettuces. Stepping Stone Farm is a no-till farm. So instead of doing any deep cultivation to prep our beds, any tilling, we add food on top to feed the soil life, which in turn feeds our plants that we eat, which feeds us. The full circle. I ran a gritter over the top of my beds to help with the spacing, but it's not necessary. The gritter I'm using creates blocks that are 6 inches wide by 6 inches long, so it creates a nice grid pattern on top to space these little gems to maximize the space, the available bed space on the bed. And since we're not doing any deep cultivation, I'm going to show you how we go about transplanting our lettuces. I use my dibber here, which is a blunt, about inch wide tool that's going to create a bit of a depression, a small little indentation in the surface of the soil, just large enough to accommodate the lettuce cell that's in our tray here. I'm going to pop one out. This cell happens to have 2 lettuce seedlings growing in it. I'm going to thin it out to 1, the healthiest lettuce. And I'm going to put this guy right in that depression that I made, slightly fill it in, and with 2 fingers on each side of the lettuce cell, I'm going to make sure it has good soil contact. That's the most important part about this process. The lettuce cell wants to have contact with the native soil that's being planted into, so those roots can continue to go on growing, acclimate to its new home, and be nice and happy throughout its growing season. I'm going to go ahead and pop a few more transplants in the ground here. And I'm going to space them a little bit wider than I normally would because we're on the cusp of the fall and winter season here. The fall and winter season doesn't have as much sunlight or warmth, so air circulation is of utmost importance when we're planting. To leave a little bit more room between the plants will encourage more evaporation, more airflow, so we don't run the risk of having as much mold and mildew issues, foliar diseases, while these plants are growing. We're hedging our beds. These Newham lettuces, during their normal main season, have a days to maturity, a growing period of about 45 days or so, which for us when we're racing against the clock, as the daylights decrease, these should be ready in about 2 months' time, around Thanksgiving. They'll grow a little bit slower than the normal season lettuces, but that's all right. If we get them in the ground now, we'll have enough time to allow them to form a head rather than staying stunted and potentially prematurely flowering at the turn of the year. There's a bit of a misconception about the idea of soil needing to rest. When we have living roots in the ground, those living roots are creating a relationship with the soil life, and they benefit each other. As plants photosynthesize, they are putting carbohydrates and sugars, carbon-based snacks for soil life to eat through their roots. That's a big form of food and sustenance for the soil life in the ground. And as they receive that food from the roots of these plants, which are actively photosynthesizing, the soil life then goes and finds all the necessary vitamins and nutrients and macro and micro elements that the plants need in order to thrive. It's this beautiful relationship of the soil life supporting the plants supporting the soil life, and frankly, all of them working on our behalf to feed us. So the more living roots we have in the ground, the more soil life we're able to feed. And the more soil life we're able to feed, the better that soil life will be at creating a fertile environment for our plants. Look at our little lettuces, standing like little soldiers in the field. The other important step in transplanting these lettuces is to water them in. Here I'm applying water directly to the planting hole where it's most needed and most useful, rather than watering the entire bed. Because at this stage, the root zone of these plants are so small that they only need water centrally located around the rooting zone, which are the little holes that we created with our dibber. By applying the water this way, we're making sure that the area around the root ball and the root ball itself becomes saturated to help acclimate those baby roots to their new environment, the bed in which we planted them into. We're conserving water this way, and here in Northern California, water is a precious resource. We don't want to be wasteful. We only want to use enough of a resource that we need. I'll water all these guys in, and as I'm watering them in, the holes begin to backfill, covering any shallow surface roots with the available surface compost, making sure they better successfully transplant. After I water these lettuces in, I'll cover them with a row cover. In this case, a light grade frost blanket to help protect them through that transplant process. Plants like to be covered, just like babies like to be wrapped in a swaddle. It provides a sense of comfort, safety, and it also prevents these plants from being attacked by any pests, unwanted insects at this stage. While they're more vulnerable, they're more susceptible to being attacked. They went through a very stressful process of transplanting. We want to give them a little extra TLC to make sure they survive this hump onto their teenage and mature years, so we can then enjoy them at the table around Thanksgiving.